Hello, and welcome to the Dad and Buried podcast, where we lower the bar for all parents everywhere because nobody's worse at this than me and Pete. Right, Pete?
That's right. I used to have 5 kids and now I only have 3.
We go through this a lot. I think it used to be you had 5 and now you have 4, but you lost another one somewhere along
Yeah.
the way.
Listen, pro tip, it's always good to just set the stage and tell your kids that you actually had a larger number of kids than actually
Yeah.
exists,
Scare 'em
because
straight.
it's a great way for them to you get them to brush their teeth and go to bed. Oh, you didn't go to bed? Oh, well, that's a lot like El Melmahay, who just never
Oh,
made
God.
it.
This name again. No one in the history of the world has ever used that name,
Well,
Amelmahay.
El Melmahay is dear. It's an old family name.
I remember Greg with 3 G's. He was a
Yeah.
delight. I really liked that
Well,
kid.
Greg also didn't make it because after he left the window open with the air conditioning on, that was
Well, look,
yeah.
you're within your rights.
Yes,
You're
that's
within your
right.
rights. You didn't shoot him at an airport, though, which is another one of your kids
Yes, yeah,
almost got gone that
yeah,
way. Yeah.
exactly. Justifiable child mortality, I guess is how we're phrasing
Yeah,
it.
that's a future
Where
episode. Justifiable child homicide. A future
yeah,
episode of the Dad and Buried
listen,
podcast.
any parent who's brought their kid to an airport and had their kid be like, just essentially just not comply with doing the
Yeah.
simplest things, like, hey, just wait over here.
Yeah. Running
It
away. Yeah.
completely, believe me, I'm running on a very strong platform of a very knowledgeable base of folks who
So I
will tell
remember.
you.
So you hear stories or you see like photos of kids with like leashes, right? Like a backpack that has a leash,
Yeah.
and you're like, you know what?
Yep.
In an airport, that's a good idea, but not good enough for you. For you, it's
No.
you got to be allowed to murder the
Listen,
child.
hey, Your Honor, you have to understand, I told my kid 4 times to wait over there. And so there we go. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And of
Well, you
course,
know
I
what?
couldn't find the tickets. My wife was on my case.
No
What am I
jury
going to
would
do?
convict you. No jury would convict you.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's that's a topic for another time. Tonight we're going to be talking about in-laws and the holidays. So we just had Thanksgiving and Christmas is coming up, and it's a lot of time. I think a lot of us get together with our families. Thankfully, COVID seems to be slowing down a little bit, if not for Omicron. We're not going to talk about that, but last year everyone was very cautious. I did not travel for the holidays, but this year we're back in action. I was just in Virginia, as shared a cabin with my wife's parents for about, I don't know, 400 to 300 days. I can't remember. It felt a lot longer than it was. And then in a couple of
Yeah.
weeks we are going to Connecticut to hang out with my family. And I assume that you'll be seeing some of your broader
Yeah,
family this
I
holiday
was
season.
yes, that's right. I saw my brother who lives in Connecticut, and had kind of the most amazing experience because not necessarily visiting with him, even though that was great. It was the realization that I had promised to leave Wednesday afternoon after 3 o'clock from New
Yeah.
York City to drive to
Why
Connecticut.
would you do that?
And you know what it was? It was 2 years out of practice. And
Yeah.
honestly, it was like no big deal. It was we wanted to stay a few extra days. It turns out we couldn't on the back end. So I was like, oh, well, we'll
Okay.
just come up early. Great. Hang up. Everything's great. 2 days later go by. Wednesday rolls around, and I wake up. Why am I sweating? I don't understand.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
body knew, but my stupid brain, it didn't know until about, 10 o'clock in the morning, when I'm like, wait a second. I have to get my kids from school and then get on the
Oh
road
my
at three
God.
o'clock on the day before
Yeah. The
Thanksgiving, the
biggest
most
travel
traveled
day of the
day.
year.
Oh, and by the way, in 2 years, no one's ever
Oh yeah.
traveled. And so this year, everyone is going to travel. And
Everyone.
no joke, it took like 4 hours to get out
Yeah.
of the city. It
Yeah,
was,
it's like 50 miles and it took you 4
it was an
hours. Yeah.
hour and a half drive normally. And it took
Yeah.
4 hours. And it
Yeah.
was, let's just
It's a
say,
nightmare.
I was a pleasure to be
We
around.
left. So we left on Tuesday to avoid that, and it was great. We
Mm.
took the kids out of school. We left early in the morning. We no traffic at all going to like rural West Virginia. It was fine. We were supposed to come back on Friday to avoid the Saturday traffic, but we ended up staying an extra night and then got slammed with Saturday traffic. And then my kid threw up in the back seat of the car, so we had to pull off
Uh,
in
uh,
Maryland
uh,
and wipe that down. That was
Oh my
not
God. So
pleasant.
you had another like solid 3 hours of just like
it was not a lot of fun. Thankfully, for some reason, the vomit didn't smell a lot. I don't know, maybe we got to it quickly enough. But no, I'm the same. Like my wife on the way down was like, "You have serious road rage issues." Luckily, my kids usually had like headphones on because they were like, it was like an 8-hour drive, right? So they're like
Yeah.
screening it up a little bit. But I know that you let fly with the
Well,
profanities when
I
you
have a
drive.
wonderful wife and partner who will essentially audibly repeat all the things I'm swearing under my breath. Would you just call that guy and just like verbally say it out loud? I'm like, would you just I'm trying my hardest to swear under my breath at all these total
Yeah,
dicks that are on the road right
just
now. And not
assholes.
just that,
'Cause
it's just
you're a perfect driver. You're an incredible
no, I mean,
driver.
look,
Never made a mistake.
it's actually not that. It's much I have what's called driving Tourette's.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. I'm not necessarily filled with rage, but I'm so kind of conscious of not hitting another driver and other drivers not hitting me that I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, constantly, oh shit, oh fuck,
Right, right,
goddamn
right, right.
motherfucker, like just trying to merge and stuff. It's just not that I have actual explicit anger towards any other driver per se, but it's just me expressing my anxiety as I'm driving. And there's literally no other way for me to do it other than
Swearing.
just out loud swearing. And I want it like a Bane mask. Like that's
Yeah,
what my
yeah,
wife's
yeah.
saying. Just yeah,
Batman.
yeah,
See, I
yeah,
am filled with rage,
yeah,
and it does come out in swears and stuff. Especially when you're in the city, and if one of those Uber drivers or taxi drivers, they don't care about rules. They don't follow the law. They're above the law. They do whatever they
yeah,
want, and
yeah,
you just forget your kids are there, and you're screaming. It's very tense, and
yeah.
especially when there's a lot of traffic. You've been driving for a long time. But the good news is, at the end of the long drive, you get to spend hours and days in a small residence with in-laws who
Oh
hopefully,
yes.
some of the best people in the world just to hang out
It's
with.
the best.
Your
Yeah.
wife's parents. It's an absolute blast. I'm so glad we extended it an extra day and then had the vomit on the way home. The vomit on the way home was actually, you know what, pleasant. A
Yeah.
little,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It was sort of a break to mix it
Yes,
up from all
it's a nice
the
reprieve. Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry. There's vomit. At least my father-in-law's not here. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I
Worked
mean,
out.
the good news is now in this day and age, it's so great just to have a normal conversation within 4.5 minutes talking about some kind of political party
Yeah.
or stance on just about anything. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, we're gonna get into some of the pros and cons. I think there's a very big pro, and then there's a ton of cons of being in kind of close quarters with your in-laws, even the ones that you're closest with. Maybe it's your wife's parents, but then it's also your wife's brothers and sisters, or and she's dealing with your husband's brothers and sisters and all this stuff, and there's
I'm
just
curious about
tension
this
everywhere.
pro that you're talking
Oh no,
about.
there's one big pro, and
Oh,
you will
okay.
agree.
Okay.
You will agree with it, I think.
Right.
We've talked about it a little bit before in the past, but we will get into the pros and cons of spending the holidays with your in-laws when we come back right after this. All right, this week on the Dad and Barry podcast, we're talking about the pros and cons of hanging out with your in-laws around the holidays. But before we do that, we want to get back to one of our regular segments we're trying to make regular, and that's parents in the news.
In the
And Pete,
news.
you've got something to discuss. Hot
Yeah.
topics.
Yeah, I mean, as parents, our job is to raise our kids so they don't essentially so that they can be the best versions of themselves. But then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, it happens that you're now responsible, not now, but you are responsible for the actions of your kids. Like, for
Yes.
example, these two pretty horrific people that had this son that just did this recent school shooting. We're not even going to mention names because
Nope.
fuck that guy all the way, straight to fucking wherever. And the point is that can you imagine as a parent, essentially raising your kid to become this way? And I think it's really interesting. And I think it's the first, I could be very wrong on this, but I think it's certainly the first most notable case where the parents are being fully brought
Yes.
up on charges and felony charges.
So a lot of
Uh,
times, if it's something like Columbine, because I read like that huge nonfiction book and stuff, right, which was like
yeah,
kind of the one that kicked it all off, not to be
yeah,
glib, but like you read that and it's kind of like, the main kid who was the ringleader was, a straight up psychopath who was able to like hide all the stuff he was doing. And the other kid
yeah.
was kind of like an outsider and was very private. And it was just like, it wasn't necessarily like the parents were enabling it or
And
anything. It
this
was
is
a little,
before social media and of course all
yes.
that stuff. Yeah,
And the parents
100%.
just weren't necessarily clued into everything their kids were doing. In this
Right.
situation, it seems a little bit more like the parents' lifestyle,
Enabled.
their philosophies very much
100%.
enabled the kid. And the gun stuff obviously was a pure enablement. Just all of that stuff. It ties into a whole bigger thing. But normally your sympathies are with the parents, not in this case, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's it. I mean, it's our, we spend so much effort and time, or most of us do at the very least, and it's actually
Not that much for
interesting
me.
because if you think about it, like how these guys raised and the environment that they set up was such a direct reflection, such a direct
Mhm.
output of what happened. It's just it's a key reminder that is you're both guiding these human beings that are not actually you but are facsimiles of you, but they're their own people, and then you're doing the best you can, but also at the
Mhm.
same time it's like if you set up this framework
Right.
where either good or bad, you're
Like
gonna get
you're limiting, you're narrowing the possible, like the positive possibilities, right? The
yeah,
kid is kind of going down that tunnel that you've set up for him. And that's one of
yeah.
the reasons, like you try to set up a really broad area and teach them the right values and stuff. But when your value system is kind of hemming the kid in, there's not much place for him to go, right?
Right. Right. And it sucks. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible tragedy. And I
Yeah,
think,
it's
I
horrible.
think the reason why I wanted to bring it up was just this, we talk a lot about, or we have in the past about, it's a complicated world, right? We all know that it's now
Hmm.
very, very complicated. And that's the reason we have this bloody podcast, is so that we can talk through like how to be a dad, how to be a
Yeah.
parent, how to be, because everything has changed, right? Like the light years changed from how our parents were, from how they raised us versus how we raise our kids. And I think it's a really sort of illustrative point of like being able to tie directly this. I mean, it's a horrible event, and I hate the fact that it had to even happen. But just tying it directly back to the parents and having them be
Hmm.
responsible as well, because that's part of it. You can't just fill your kid's head with something
Right.
and then be like, I don't know. Like, fuck
Exactly. Yeah.
that, right? Like, fuck that. Your accountability, you're responsible to a certain degree for sure. But yeah, so I think that's that's the key is we
That's the worst case scenario, really, for parenting is when your kid goes and kind of does something like that, and like
mm.
it just, that's
Well, I
the
mean, it's
last
like,
thing that
look,
you want as a parent.
well,
I think
yeah,
safe to
Jesus
say.
Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, we all, as your kids grow and they're go from these tiny little amorphous blobs into kind of
Hmm.
sentient beings, and you see them develop, it's just interesting because you all we're trying to do is guide them, but also we have to guide, it's like, how do you guide them? You
Hmm.
can't, and you want to be able to provide the right kind of thinking and the right kind of thinking, but the right way of being able to make decisions, both moral and
Right. You got to set up some guidelines, some rules. You got to
yeah.
set up some foundational stuff. Like this year, I'm going through with my 11-year-old that he needs to understand that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and it's something that
Yeah,
we're going to be
exactly.
watching this December. My wife has already launched our Christmas movie extravaganza.
Okay,
We
good.
watched Home Alone 2 earlier tonight, which is
Wow.
not good.
No.
We watched the original Home Alone the other night. We have a
That's
whole list.
it's in former President Trump in Home Alone 2. Isn't
Oh
that the
yes,
one?
he is. He is. Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't talk about him. I missed
Uh,
that scene. I was out of the room, I think, cooking
uh,
dinner when he showed up, regretfully. We watched the Home Alone reboot that was on Disney Plus with Rob Delaney. We're never watching Home Alone 3. I've never actually seen it, but my wife put a list of, I think, like 20 movies on the fridge, and she literally has anxiety, being like, "How are we going to get to all these?" Because there's like big ones that have to be like weekend night, like Friday night.
Everyone.
Sunday night movie nights, like we have to get it, but we're going out on Saturday. How are we going to get to this? We got to watch Christmas Vacation. We got to watch Elf. We got to watch Die Hard
We
at
got to
some point. We got to
cancel
do
our
all this stuff.
plans. We can't go out and have a good time.
That's what I keep
Not
telling you.
during
We
a
need to
pandemic.
have a marathon. We need to just, for the next 3 weeks, just grab a couple of kegs, a couple of boxes of wine,
Yeah.
and do the holiday movie thing. Some of them you don't actually watch until it's closer, like Christmas Story Marathon is on Christmas Day kind of thing. So some of that will be, I think, when we're at my parents'. So
do you get exemptions for, like, can you go past Christmas? Can you go into the days really between Christmas and New Year's?
No, not for a Christmas movie. There's a couple of movies that can be considered sort of like more New Year's movies. Like there's this movie called Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds and Anna Faris, which my wife and I watch every year. She loves it. Anna Faris is actually really, really funny in it. But it was before Ryan Reynolds was like super famous or anything. But that is considered kind of, we can watch that in the week between Christmas and New Year's. But everything else that's sort of explicitly Christmas has to be done before Christmas, during kind of the December holiday season. So we are going to Connecticut this year, which we do every year, though not last year. Honestly, I don't even remember what happened last year, but it was the first year my kids have woken up on Christmas morning in my house, because every other time we go to Connecticut a couple days early, we're there. It's my childhood home. They run down the stairs just like I did. All the presents are there, all that stuff. But my kids really enjoyed waking up in my house. The problem is, and this is the main pro, as I alluded to earlier, of spending the holidays with your in-laws, is you get a little extra help, right? You get extra help from the grandparents or the aunts and uncles who want to see your kids. You get extra interaction. Like your kids, instead of kind of annoying you and talking to you about everything, are maybe talking to like fun Uncle Rob about everything, and not so much in your face. So you can kind of do your drinking or do a little extra sleeping. You don't have this experience?
Well, I mean, that's what I was going to say, is that this is, I would say probably 60% of people out there might have that. But there are some people there, don't forget, our parents and our parents-in-law can be real dicks.
Oh,
and there's a lot of them out there who just want nothing to do with the kids.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? So in my case, most of the time it's a little bit more, if they're going to be dicks, they're dicks to the other adults.
Yeah, just straight,
pretty good with the kids.
Just basically the Mike approach to just being just like a blanket. Yeah,
exactly. And they're usually pretty good with the kids, which is great, because when I go to my parents, and they're getting older, but it used to be very much like my mom ran the show and was doing the dinner and all that stuff, and everybody kind of pitched in. But it's very different than hosting, right? So that's one thing. But this isn't about whether you're hosting or not. It's just if there's in-laws around, and hopefully if there's cousins, that's huge too. Because my kids over Thanksgiving were playing with their cousins a lot, so the adults could hang out alone or whatever.
So that's what I kind of thought you were going to go more of that, because your parents, at a certain point, they don't want to really talk to your kid who's 11 or 7. I mean, no one really wants to do that. They'll talk for like a little bit. Yes. Let's do a solid, would say 5 to 10 minute catch up at the door on the way in, and then okay, I think I've got it, and then you're off to to bigger and better.
Like we had our small talk. I made an appearance. The kid, got his cheek pinched, and then he's off to show his cousin his new video game or whatever, which is very much what happened on Thanksgiving. And then when we see my brother's kids, some of that is definitely going to happen on Christmas, which is nice, because just having kind of extra hands on deck, especially when it's kids, and then kind of go off by themselves, I think is really huge. And a couple of people mentioned that. So, but what's funny is, Shelby lied, said that her con is that we don't have grandparents that offer to babysit my 2-year-old and 3-month-old. So fuck all of you that do, which is essentially sums up the episode we had a while back about when you have free family help, and instead of, because Mama Bear and I did an episode on date night last week, and a lot of people were like, oh yeah, we drop the kids to the grandparents for date night, and Mama Bear and I don't have that. I know you and your wife don't have that, which really sucks. It's a real luxury to have. And I'm very jealous of everyone who does have it. So it's a pro if you have it. It's a major con kind of if you don't. Like you said, if the in-laws want nothing to do with the kids, that's a lose-lose situation.
Well, and also, it sounded like in that pro, you and your wife were going to go away that would like hit, like you show up for Thanksgiving, it's like, hey everybody, and then you
Take
basically
off.
like your kids get this huge push in the back, and then the door slams behind them, and they don't understand what's happening, but you're like, peace out. There's
So
burning rubber in the driveway as
here's the
you.
thing. One of the challenges with my wife's family is they live far away from us and don't always have the means to kind of travel, and we don't always have the means to travel to visit them. So when we do get together, it's once or twice a year at most, right? So my wife is like, I need to hang out with my parents. So there's no chance of us like going out on like a date of our own. Also, we were in like
Right.
deep rural Virginia where
Yeah.
it was just like 20 minutes to get to the main road. So none of that was happening. In Connecticut, with my parents are getting a little bit too old to like watch the kids on their own if my kids are being pains. Like my 5-year-old is still like a dynamo, right? He's a little bit much, right? So we try to make sure if we're going to go out, we make sure the kids go to bed and we get them in bed in time,
Yeah.
So that my parents don't have to deal with
Starting
it.
at 4:30 in the afternoon. It's
Exactly.
like
Or you just put,
pulling down the blinds. Hey, don't
or
worry
you
about
just put
that.
on the Home Alone marathon and they watch like 6 straight Home Alone. Just don't bother Grandma
Yeah.
and Pop
Yeah.
when me and Mommy are out getting blasted,
Right.
because that's what you do. You go
Right.
back to your hometown, you see some friends.
You
So
get
do
in that
you hang out
car,
with,
you drive to the bar, and you get blasted.
exactly? Do you hang out
Blasted.
with your in-laws for the holidays? You saw your brother. How about Christmas?
I don't. My brother is the only family that I have in this part of. I mean, my sister is. I shouldn't say that. My sister is in Washington D.C., but
Hmm. Heard of it?
yeah. So it's just my brother's like an hour away. So in holidays, it's funny you were saying we only see them once or twice a year. He's only an hour away. I think we see them maybe once a year, maybe twice. Just he's got 3 kids. It's just life kind of happens.
Yeah,
But
for
it's
sure.
always a good time. We always generally there's just always alcohol like just
Yeah,
flowing, and it's fun. And the kids, they really pack up. So he has 3, and their ages are exactly kind of intertwined.
that's
So
perfect.
he has slightly older kids, and man, they just like they pack up, and then they just who knows, they just kind of disappear into the neighborhood, and you're like, cool.
Yeah, well, that's nice. Like in the suburbs, where they can go outside and they can
Yeah.
do all that kind of
And
stuff,
he's
right?
he's on a cul-de-sac, so it's like classic. Yeah. And then
It's
a
like
couple of them
ET.
drive now.
The kids?
Yeah, yeah. My brother's kids are in high school, and so
Oh my gosh.
the
See you
seniors driving.
later.
Yes, yeah, totally. And I'm like,
Go to the mall.
yes.
Do they still go to the mall? The kids still go to the mall?
They go. I don't know what they do these days, to be honest with you, but they do
Well,
something
maybe
like
you
that.
should. They're not going to McDonald's and drinking shakes, I can tell you that much.
I think it starts. I think McDonald's is the gateway hangout place. To be honest with you, I think it's
I
still
heard
McDonald's.
malls are making a comeback, is what I've heard, but I have no evidence to support this. It's totally anecdotal.
Yeah, I
When's
don't
the
know.
last time you went to a mall?
It was actually, yeah, it was a long time ago. It was like 2 years ago.
I remember when I was growing up, one of the like, independent things you would do was like you would go Christmas shopping with your friends, like a day or a couple days before Christmas, or one of the days off, or one of the weekend days that you get dropped off at the mall, and you'd wander around and you would buy some trinkets. I have a Miami Dolphins keychain that had a little figurine guy on it that I
Yeah.
still have from 8th grade. I went
You
with
bought
Mark's
yourself?
Weirdling. Yeah.
No, no.
Screw you.
You bought yourself a Christmas present?
I bought myself a little Christmas treat
Wow.
for doing the
Oh
Christmas
my God.
shopping. I
You
earned
were
it.
you were self-healing
I
all the
think
way
I
back
bought it
then.
myself. I remember buying it myself, but I mean, who knows? There's so many things I remember that weren't actually from my life and were like from episodes of Seinfeld and stuff that I think are like my stories. But anyway, so you go to the mall and you spend like 3 hours and you feel independent. You have a little bit of money. I don't think they even had Auntie Anne's back then, but if they did, I've been all over it. Those pretzels are
Orange
good.
Julius.
I never had Orange Julius, not even once. Never
I
had
never
it.
did either.
It was in the mall. I wasn't
Yeah.
interested. I don't like orange juice. What do I need orange Julius? What is it?
Let me just say those pretzels. What is it? That's
So good.
isn't
Auntie Anne's pretzels.
at
Yeah.
the end. Those the
It's Auntie.
napkin to pretzel ratio is so high. I mean, that stuff is like on your skin, and the smell of that butter, and
Delicious.
it's good. It just you really need a hazmat suit.
You can
But
get like the cinnamon and sugar ones. I've never had them. I'm not interested in that.
I'm not really interested in that either. I'm too busy thinking about how gross my hands are, my kids' hands are. And you go to wash it, just soap repels off of your
Oh yeah,
hands
you
that
need
are
like
now
lava or
glistening.
something.
Yeah, they're just, I mean, you can wash your hands like 5, 10, doesn't matter. That butter substance, whatever it is not coming off your hands for like 2 or 3 days. You got to like go to the park and put it in sand in order for that stuff to come off.
So it's funny because this shopping, I think I'll probably, like, when I get to Connecticut, if I have time, like maybe like I used to, like on Christmas Eve, like make one last run or something with or without my wife, maybe like with my brother or somebody I haven't seen in a while. Um, but well, I think Mom and Barrett and I are gonna try to do like a gift giving episode, maybe like next week, so she can complain about how horrible my gift giving is, because it is pretty bad. But I find it really frustrating because my kid is 11, and like I'm at the point where like he needs to start pulling his weight with these gifts, and he's got no means. Like we don't let him like browse the internet, so he's not going to like Amazon to buy anything. My wife doesn't want like a $10 Roblox
Right.
gift card, which is like the stuff he comes up to. Do your kids? So you have an older kid. Do they
Yeah.
buy gifts?
Well, so yeah,
They
she
shop for the
is
fam?
starting to come into means, the by which she's gainfully employed as a babysitter, so she's pulling in some cash. And by the way, babysitters are like a hot commodity right now. So
Yeah, I know.
it's a niche industry. I'm thinking about getting into it actually.
Yeah, she probably makes a lot.
I mean, not with my kids, of course. Some
No, no,
other
no.
kids. I would leave my
Yeah.
7-year-old at home to go babysit some other kid, some other 7-year-old. But yeah, no, so she's starting to do it. But with girls, it's easier because they just kind of know more about
Yeah.
everything, really, in
They
terms of
pay
what to get.
attention, and
They
like
pay
they don't need
attention.
hints. They pay attention to what people like,
They
and
know she'll get, my wife some amazing, hair
yeah, that you've never
some
heard of.
nothing that's on TikTok that's like the
Yeah.
flavor of the week, that's some sort of like bath bomb that rejuvenates your skin or
So
something.
so bringing this back to in-laws. So when I was a little kid, right, and my grandparents would come over, or my aunts and uncles would come over on Christmas. So I'd wake up my house, we do all our family stuff, right? And then like throughout the day, other parts of my family would come over, and all that meant to me was
More
fucking more
presents.
gifts are coming, right?
Cha-ching.
And I never once,
Cha-ching.
the concept of in-laws didn't mean anything to me. These were just all people in my family, and I
Yeah.
don't know if my mom was like, shit, here comes grandma and papa, my husband's
Yeah.
parents, who I can't stand, are coming
Yeah.
over now. I don't think that was the case.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, like, if my parents had problems with any of their in-laws kind of stuff, because the big stereotypical thing is that hanging out with your in-laws isn't that great. Even if you have great in-laws, if they're house guests and they're in your face all the time, that gets old. But did
Do you
you
have a
have
good
any?
relationship? Do you have a good relationship with your in-laws?
I have a good relationship with my wife's parent. Well, here's what's important. They really like me, right? So like I really raised the bar on like the whole family just goes up a notch once I'm
Right.
involved. Let's just be
Yeah, yeah,
real.
yeah, yeah. And this is to be true. Like, this is a family that hasn't gotten out very much and has basically stayed inside and doesn't have much contact. So
No.
so that's why the bar gets raised so high when you walk in the door with your Miami Dolphins
So
hat on and
well, here's what's funny.
your Marvel t-shirts. They're like,
My First of
whoa,
all,
this
I
guy
have like
has t-shirts.
I have like one Marvel t-shirt, so get off me. And second of all, my father-in-law is a Dolphins fan. So that
Oh
actually,
my God, what are the
he, I
chances?
don't know. He's also a Yankees fan, so that's problematic. And he's a bigger baseball fan than a football fan.
That's
But that
weird.
that goes a long way, right? And luckily enough, even though they're conservative, they're from rural areas. They weren't Trump people. So like we unbelievably like we're able to dodge that bullet. There's some other in-laws that
Wow.
are Trumpers and like anti-vaxxer kind of situation, but
Yeah.
my in-laws, they're all aboard the COVID-19 vaccination train. They didn't vote for Trump. So like that goes a long way towards like diffusing some potential landmine conversations, right? Which is again one of the obvious cons of hanging out with your in-laws, is like
Well,
ideological conflict
yeah.
and
Well, how
political.
about just like your regular birth parents
Oh yeah,
who
yeah,
who who
that's even
have
worse. Yeah.
who have just yeah, who are just taken the had red pilled and they're out.
Yeah, well, yeah, if they got brainwashed by Fox News, and they're those people, yeah, they read all those heartbreaking stories about like my dad was brainwashed by Fox News, like on Slate.com.
Yeah.
A
Yeah, no, I
Dodger
mean
bullet.
that's it. That's it. I mean that's more my situation, but I just
Yeah.
my in-laws are not uh it's they're not like they're good or bad. It's just like they're more kooky.
Uh-huh.
I want to use the word kooky.
Harmlessly kooky, like just like quirky and
Harmlessly kooky, yes, because we've never left them in charge of like any
uh-huh.
human life, so like
See
any
that's
child
a
or anything,
bummer, yeah.
because it's yeah we've made sure that that's not. So they were never able to take care really of our kids,
Right.
unlike my parents, right, who were and
But
have
had
been
no
able to.
interest, right?
No. They actually are they're super engaged, and actually that's the beautiful. It's like such detente whenever I go visit my parents, like just it's a
You don't want to
great
jeopardize it.
no, it's a great exercise in just, being civil. And
Yep.
everyone knows where everyone is. And at some point, something's gonna come up, but you just don't know what it's gonna be. And you just gotta like the whole time, it's like, uh-huh. Oh yeah, oh great. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, you can go outside? Yeah, we love going outside. Oh, us too. Oh yeah? How
Keep it
much do you like
neutral.
going outside? I really like going outside. Do you like going inside? I also like going inside.
We like to talk and not talk. We both like soup. Does your
Yeah.
wife get along with your parents?
She does. She does. She does. Yeah, she does. In very much the same way that I do. I think my parents can be a little sort of not overbearing, but just they're like, oh, we're gonna come and do this. Can we they kind of just set the agenda. Let's just put it that
Yeah,
way,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and not in a only in a way that you got to like once you know it, you're like actually that's not gonna work, and you have to kind of deploy certain
Right.
tactics and
Diplomatically,
diplomatic
yeah,
tactics. And of course
alter
my
the
brother
course.
and I my brother has the best thing about my brother is the size of his house, or the where he lives is like much bigger than mine, so I have like a built-in like like you can't he's like you can't come to my neck of the woods,
Yeah, yeah,
only
yeah, yeah. Right.
because it's like
There's no
we're
space.
gonna be
Yeah.
bringing the tenements back, which is you can't have like 25 people living in a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
apartment. So but it's good. I mean it's a wonderful I call it the beautiful game. It's just
Just
around the
avoiding
holidays. It's like, oh
conflict. Yeah.
yeah. Just avoiding conflict and avoiding
So my wife gets along. My mom is like, like she's so nice. It almost seems like she's being like passive aggressive and
yeah,
really isn't being nice. So sometimes you're just like questioning her motives, even
yeah,
though she's
yeah.
just like purely unbelievably nice. And my wife and her get along really well. But sometimes my mom
So that's where
means
you
so
get it from.
well.
That's where you
Yeah,
get it from. Yeah,
obviously. Sometimes my mom means so well that like in October she goes Christmas shopping and she's like, can I have the boys list? And I'm like, they're focused on Halloween. They're not getting you a Christmas list for like a month, but she'll go out and buy a bunch of stuff that they don't want just so she can finish her Christmas shopping. Like she's not doing it maliciously. She just thinks she'll knows what they like and all this kind of stuff. And then when we send her the list of the actual things they've
yeah.
asked
She's like,
for,
what
she's
is
already
this?
done shopping.
Yeah. She's like, oh, that's so sweet. But like, I got sort of garbage pail kids.
Yeah,
I don't know what
yeah.
Bakugan is,
And there's a
but
bunch of stuff my kids
I'm
like will
not
touch
doing it
once.
anymore. Yeah.
My kids will touch once, never have again, and it just clutters up our house. Or she'll buy me clothes
Yeah.
that because she bought them in October are well past the return date. Right? She'll like gamble on clothes, and I'll have them, and there'll be the receipt and stuff, but it's like 120 days later, and I'm no longer able to exchange a shirt that I can't fit in, or it's a Cosby sweater, and the connotations are just not something I'm willing to deal with. But my parents aren't super quirky, but they're old enough that they're kind of set in their ways, right? So we go there and we're kind of
Yeah.
stuck, kind of.
And so your mom and Barrett gets along with them well enough that it's
Yeah,
not a big deal. So that's I mean, look, that's the thing. And I think that's the key is that it is being able to go and actually genuinely relax and have a good time. I
yes,
know I know people that's not the case, where it's
no,
very stressful.
hence, yeah,
It's almost like, okay, I know we have to, and generally it'll be like one person or another. Like, I have a friend who like they have to go and see his wife's mom. The wife's stepdad is like intolerable, not and no way politically, has nothing to do with politics, just like
right.
cantankerous,
Yeah.
I think he's like early Alzheimer's or what have you, but
Right.
like it's just very stressful. It's just very hard.
Right. There's
And
no way around doing it. You have to like you see the family in
you
like
got
about
to just
9
go
minutes
and
and
and look, you got
yeah,
to go and you got to just show up and you know what you're getting into
you
and it's
just gotta
just
take
like
it. Yeah.
yeah, you just got to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You got to just take it. And it's a
Once a
shame.
year,
And
holidays.
well, the thing is it's a shame if it's like if you know you could be doing something else
Oh,
that's better. It's kind of like being
you could
stuck in the
always be
slow
doing something
lane
else.
when
Yeah.
when the cars are
Yeah.
whizzing past you. That feeling of like, oh my God, why am I here? That feeling is really, I think, the worst of all the human emotions. I'm just gonna say that being stuck in traffic. I'm just gonna
FOMO.
say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm just gonna say that because that's a totally valid thing to say across all of life.
The
Being stuck in
worst
the
human
slow
emotion.
lane
Yeah.
is the worst
Not
feeling
being
you can
able to
have
like
as a
seeing the
human.
lane on your right move and not
Yeah,
being able to get
yeah.
in. And then you
Yeah.
get in and then the other lane starts moving because
And
that's what happens.
believe me, I don't want you guys to take this out of context. I'm talking generally all life
Yeah.
in the slow
All
lane.
living organisms
Yeah, all of me.
hate
That's
traffic.
the worst. Yeah.
So my father-in-law, he has like back problems. So he never sits down. And he just likes to linger in the kitchen. So like you'll be like, depending on what the layout of the place is, and at the place we were at, the kitchen was like a narrow, like galley kitchen that
Yeah.
was very small, not workable. And he would be in there and you could not get in if he was in there. And he was just in there all the time. You'd have to be like, hey, you got to come out of the kitchen just so I can open the fridge. But then sometimes he's just like, lurking in the back of the room while like you're
Yeah.
doing whatever you're doing, which is weird. But again, he didn't vote for Trump, so things are generally okay. So one guy on here said that she dot lover az said his or her father-in-law is a showboat and attended the insurrection, which I thought it was very funny to refer to it as the insurrection. Just matter of factly. And I don't know what the showboat thing
Well,
means. I don't know if he like he walks in with like a
I
"Don't tread on me" flag and he's like
yeah, I just
carrying
no,
the podium.
I love that phrase. Attended the
Yeah, me
insurrection.
too. I
Just
loved it
like
reading it.
cause yeah, well it just it is a
Well,
yeah,
he
it's
had
such a
standing room
clear
only
distinction.
tickets. Standing room only tickets for the insurrection, January 6th. What a good time. So another problem people have, and this is what I want to one of the things I want to ask you, is unsolicited parenting advice. I don't get a lot of that from my in-laws. They're not like they don't see my kids doing stuff and are like that kid needs a firm hand or too much screen time or you're spoiling him or anything like that. Like they don't comment. Um, and I don't think my parents do that too much either. They're not like telling my wife she's blowing it or
Were your
anything like that.
parents strict? I forget.
Yeah, they were pretty strict. I mean, look, I was the youngest, right? So
Oh,
I
okay.
saw my older brother, the middle brother, he was getting in trouble a lot, and it kind of sort of scared me straight. Also, I was really nerdy, so that wasn't really an issue. I didn't really,
Right,
I didn't have too
I
many trouble.
forgot about the clarinet years.
Yeah, the clarinet
Yeah.
years. Yeah, I wasn't exactly, ripping it up. But do you get unsolicited parenting advice from like your wife's parents or anything like that?
No. I get unbelievable amounts of advice from my own mom and my own mother and just
Oh,
oh,
just
I
judgment
mean
or advice?
uh like just well I'll say something like it really doesn't matter. It'll be just about anything. One of my daughters took the subway to school. Oh. Oh,
Oh,
New York City subway?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Well, listen, here's the deal. Is she still alive? Yeah, mom, she's still alive. She managed to ride the New York City subway
Yeah.
and managed
One
to
of the
stay alive.
few who survived.
And just well, you got there's just all these like pauses of
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, okay, I can't take this anymore. In fact, what's so funny is that, both she and I agree on certain things. Like, for example, whatever, we just agree. Politically, we kind of joined on this, on Mr. Mayor de Blasio. We were just kind of like, we were like, okay, fine. Yeah, this is, whatever.
You found some
But
common ground. Yeah.
we found some common ground. But man, just,
Just those
everything.
little, you can't, yeah.
Every
It's the kind of stuff you
the beginning of
notice.
every conversation was like, oh my
Right.
gosh, did you hear? I'm like, look, here's the deal. I'm not going to sit here and defend any one thing or the other, but I can guarantee you 90% of what you're thinking is probably incorrect.
Yes.
However, that 10% I completely agree with, and I think
Right.
it's ridiculous, and I'm not into it. And so and I would, that's how we would, and she'd be like, okay, yeah, no, totally.
We get some pushback, or like sort of like passive aggressive commenting about how we shouldn't live in New York City anymore. It's too expensive and we need to get out of there and that kind of stuff, like from my brother sometimes and a little bit from my parents.
My uncle, can I just say this? My uncle
Yeah.
came in for his birthday, and my uncle is 80 years old, and he comes into New York City, and he says, Pete, I just need to make sure that I get from the train to the cab safely. I want to be everything's safe. I just really want to be safe. And I said, totally. And I go, Uncle Rich, here's the thing. You live in Newark.
Yeah.
Newark, Jersey. Like, what the fuck
much
are
worse.
you talking about? Like, you are like literally in the fucking gates of
I
hell.
thought you were gonna say something like my in-laws.
And not just that, it's like you are in like you're off Martin Luther King Boulevard in Newark. And anyone who's driven down Martin Luther King
They're
Boulevard,
scared of him when he goes
listen,
out in the
I'm
streets of New
telling
York
you, man.
City. They're like,
I'm
that guy's
telling
from Newark. Watch out.
telling you, man. And quite frankly, he is. He's a badass. But dude, it's just this like, can you just I've just heard, and I'm like, come on, dude. Like, I mean, it's not a walk in the park, but it's also not like a horrible thing, right? It's not, you're not super in
Right.
danger, but
No.
just that was, I thought it was great.
That's
It
a
was like
strange
coming
disconnect. Yeah.
straight from New York.
So I thought you were gonna say that it was like he's from rural,
Yeah, no, I know.
which
That's
is
the best.
where my in-laws are from. And whenever we go and like get a cabin, like I'm much more scared in the middle of nowhere than I am like
I've
in the
never been
city.
more scared. I've literally never been more like aware of my surroundings. I was like, again, Newark, New Jersey, off of Martin Luther King Boulevard.
Yeah.
The housing projects are all right there.
Yeah.
It's very, very serious. Like, it's almost like, it's like as if you were, in any one of the most very serious housing projects
Yes.
anywhere. You get that feeling, and he lives right near there, and he's like worried about it. So anyway, it's all good, and these are the things you kind of take with a grain of salt.
Right.
Luckily for us in our situation, it's really not that. It hasn't ever really impeded anything too much, other than just kind of having to internalize
Yeah,
it.
so
Also,
that's
my poor
funny.
wife, I will say, when my parents come in, they do this thing where they will talk to my wife, and I've seen it, and it's actually crazy. We make eyes at each other. They'll tell the same story at the same time. So they'll both be talking at the
In
same
stereo.
time,
Yeah.
but it'll be slightly off. Like, one person will either be a little bit ahead of the story, and the other, and then while they're telling it, they'll start getting into arguments. Like, don't no, let me just let me do this. And my wife is at the end of it is like, okay, your parents have to fucking go. They have to fucking go.
So it's funny because around Thanksgiving I asked, like I was, killing time because I was with my in-laws, and I stepped outside and I did an Instagram story and I asked people what everybody was fighting with their in-laws about around like the holidays. And I didn't ask that again this time, although it would have been interesting to be like, what's the worst fight you've had with your in-laws, whatever. But some of the responses that I got to this thing, so somebody said, a lot of it was like the Rittenhouse verdict, which had just happened, obviously. Somebody was like, parent how to parent your kids correctly. Somebody was just talking about, whatever was happening in the football game. And then Tangelo of Justice says, my mother-in-law swears that one testicle hanging lower than the other is not normal. That was an argument. Somehow they got, I don't know if they're talking about the turkey. I don't know what's happening. Obviously, people arguing about kind of the vaccine and that kind of stuff. Somebody said that they got in a fight about Lin-Manuel Miranda. They were like, we did not see that coming. That's what Tina Girl said. What side would you be on
Pro
if
or
you got in a
con?
fight? This is what I'm asking you. I don't know. I
Uh,
didn't ask her. I could say
uh,
it gets a little repetitive, his stuff. I like Hamilton, but all his stuff sounds like Hamilton. And even the stuff before Hamilton, what was that other one? The In the Heights just sounds like a dry run for Hamilton. Yeah, he's very samey, his stuff. Not that I'm not trying to start anything here.
no, it's true. He's
Talented guy.
Yeah, no, I think he's had enough time in the sun. I think it's time to really start bringing him down. Come on, everyone, let's get him.
Let's trash him.
Let's
Yeah,
get him, man. Yeah,
we've solved every other problem. Let's attack
yeah,
this
yeah,
guy.
yeah. Let's
Yeah.
get this guy.
So no,
I don't
like
know.
we've never had like a huge fight. My parents get mad if I like, because they go to church every weekend, but they go to like the fastest possible service, and I call it McChurch. I'm like, it never really counts if you're not really like, if your heart's not in it, and you're just like the most convenient version
Yeah,
of church. I'm not sure if Jesus counts that. So every once in a while, like we butt heads about that kind of thing. But my parents are pretty reasonable, and we agree on a lot of that stuff. I avoid any of that kind of hot button third rail stuff with my in-laws, but luckily some of the big stuff we're sort of aligned on, which is good. So we've
yeah.
never had like a drunken fist fight or anything at Thanksgiving or Christmas. Have you?
Well, you know what, Mike? That's what 2021 is really all about. It's about sort of pushing those borders, those
Yeah.
boundaries. And it's like, Mom, Dad, I've got something to tell you. I've got lightning and thunder here,
Yeah,
and I'm
right.
about to open up some whoop ass
Let's do it.
on everyone's ass. And then they'll be like, you said ass twice. And
You
you
know
go,
what?
shut up.
Honestly, it's been a long almost 2 years, right? And I would not be surprised, especially everyone's very excited to like gather with their family and stuff again. And hopefully it will be healthy and Omicron won't ruin anything, all that kind of stuff. But there's probably a fair amount of tension that everybody's kind of under that's kind of built up. So maybe these holiday dinners are going to be powder kegs.
Well, you know, yeah, maybe. I mean, I think people are happy just to start to see people, to be honest with you. I think a
Get
lot of
back
it,
to life.
yeah, I think, just to be able to interact,
Hmm.
even if it's a pain in the ass, you're just like, I don't care. Just where's the Jack Daniels? Does someone
Yeah,
have a
yeah, yeah.
goddamn handle of Jack Daniels? Just focus on what's
Just have like
important.
a big gulp with a straw. You just
Yeah,
all day long.
exactly. And I,
Microdose it all day.
yeah, and I think that that's kind of part of it. Also, just recognizing, I guess, as through the course of this conversation, I guess it's my parents that are the in-laws, the nightmare in-laws that no one really wants to be around.
Well, that's fun, right?
Uh,
Because you don't consider your parents in-laws, but from a different perspective, they're somebody's in-laws, so
oh
maybe they're
yeah,
not all
yeah.
peaches
No,
and cream.
it's no 100%. And actually, it's good to be able to kind of have that perspective to kind of step back and be like, okay, yeah. But I love my parents a lot. They've got their quirks, and I can totally see. I mean, the thing is I've spent 40 years dealing with them. Just being able to like
Yeah, yeah,
defuse and also completely fuse and
yeah,
push
yeah. You know
buttons and
exactly
just
how to
like know
fuse it.
exactly how to like pressure point fight those guys. And our spouse don't know how to do that, so they're all like,
No,
uh-huh, oh yeah, oh, what
yeah,
an interesting story you're both telling me at the same time. By the way, I think it's the 30th time you've told that story, and guess what, it gets so much worse each time you tell it, so
it's
thanks for that.
funny too because sometimes like you'll recognize stuff that you just have to humor and be like, this is just the way it is, or your wife or whatever will take something the wrong way, and you just have to be like, it's hard, like it's not what they meant or whatever, because you have the 4 decades of interaction, whereas to
Oh my
them it's
God.
still
Well,
relatively
that's
new. Yeah.
that's so interesting that you say that, because I'm like, no, no, they totally meant that.
Yeah.
Definitely take it personally,
We
and
have
you
to leave.
should work on that.
Yeah, that's on you. Look, so
I
in-laws
no,
are,
I treat it more like yeah. I just go full in. I just lean in. I just immediately side with my parents.
I
I'm
was
like,
just gonna
yep,
say, you side with
yeah,
your
yeah,
parents. You're like,
yeah,
you're right. You're the interloper here. We were great until you came
yeah,
along.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So look, I mean, look, the big stereotype is that in-laws are a pain in the ass when you're married, but I think, it's to varying degrees for everybody. Some of us are lucky to have, reasonable people, reasonable in-laws that we get along with. But I think the bottom line is, and this is exactly what I thought when I was a kid, is that extra family members just mean more gifts. And that's what you have to hang on to this holiday season. Hopefully your in-laws get you, a nice bottle of wine or something. You just gotta let it just be like, fine,
Wow.
you went to the insurrection, but at least you brought me a nice bottle of cab.
Yeah.
I can
Oh,
deal with that.
I couldn't, Peter. I can't buy that much wine. Oh, so good. Just
So
no
I think
presents. We're
I
at
think
we're yeah.
well, no, but so somebody did mention that one of the cons is to have to like the obligation to buy meaningless gifts for other people as tokens, just because around the holidays that's kind of what you do. So
Yeah.
like my wife like me and my brothers and stuff and my wife, we've all been like, we're just gonna do Secret Santa. So instead of like every one of us buys a gift for everyone else, so
Yeah.
there's like 8, permutations and there's like 40 gifts going around. We'll just do like Secret Santa, so everybody buys a gift for one person, that kind of thing. But
Right.
this year, like my brother and his wife opted out of that. So then if we start doing it, it's just like 4 of us doing it, and we're like, what?
Yeah.
So
Good call. Just
I mean,
so it's literally just you and your brother and you and your wife, and they opted out. So just
yeah,
you.
well, no,
It's
I
just
have it's my other brother and his longtime girlfriend. But yeah, it'll be awkward if it's just like us 4, and then the other 2 are sitting there like, no, we're not involved. It was a contentious text exchange. Let me just put it that way. Like we've already kind of gone down to the bare minimum. We can't just even do this. I understand my brother hates like meaningless obligations, which whatever, fine. But we're just trying to liven things up a little bit outside of just getting blasted on Christmas Eve, which will happen too. So
oh,
hopefully this
Mike,
the whole
Mike,
Secret
come on.
Santa boycott won't come up. Does
Don't
that make
say
it out
things you can't take back.
what do you mean? That's what I use Instagram for.
Getting blasted on Christmas Eve is a family tradition.
Time honored tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my worst hangovers of my life. During college, I got unbelievably blacked out drunk, hanging out with my brother and some of his friends. And then the next morning, I slept through Christmas dinner. I was so hungover. That sucked. Anyway,
I had one of those where actually I had exactly that. Yeah, when I was growing up, I got absolutely, and this was, and I'll never forget at dinner. I think I woke up for dinner. It was either post Christmas or maybe it
hmm
was the 24th. I can't remember. But it was my wife was there, my brother's wife, everyone was there, and man, no one had a better time at that dinner than my brother. He was on cloud nine
just
because I
because
had
you were so out of it.
I had gotten so drunk and I had like there was like a scene involved and like there was thing and it was dinner was like all there was just like clinking of
Uh,
plates and knives. And
you're
my
just
brother
dying.
was like I've never seen him happier in my life. He was tears of joy were streaming down his face as he was
The
just
holidays are
constantly
all
like
about.
as always he was like, "Hey, how's it going, Pete? How you doing? Everything good?"
Just twisting the knife all
My
dinner long.
it's great. It was awesome.
Well, you know what else was awesome? This episode, as usual,
Wow.
we dominated.
Wow. Way to turn it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, so did we got everything?
Of course we did. We're
Yeah.
unbelievable at this. Comprehensive look at the pros and cons of hanging out with your in-laws around the holidays. We ticked every box.
We did.
You can listen to us on Apple, iTunes, anywhere you get your Spotify, your podcast. Watch us on YouTube. There's like 3 people that do get to see
Yeah.
what we're wearing every week. I'm wearing a hoodie, my Dolphins cap.
Beautiful.
If you're
Get to
curious,
see Mike's bedroom.
you get to see my bedroom because for some reason I can't blur the background. You can leave us a review. That would really
That would
appreciate
be
that. I think
amazing.
next week, I think Mom and Barry and I are going to try to tackle gift giving. Which if you heard the
Hard
date night
hitting.
episode,
Hard
if you
hitting.
if you heard the date night episode, there was some tension. There was a little disappointment on her end about me kind of coming through on the date nights and the romance. So I don't I don't know how good the gift giving one is going to go because she's a lot better at that than I am. But we'll be talking about that hopefully next week. I'll ask for some feedback from everybody. And until then, Pete, it's been what? It was a real pleasure tonight.
Oh my God. Well, the pleasure was all on this side of the camera, my
I
man.
appreciate that. I
All
appreciate
right.
that. We'll
Thank
catch
you
you
so much
folks
for
on the flip
listening.
flop.
We'll see you next time.
Peace. I don't know why you would still be watching This Isn't a Marvel movie, no matter how much I look like Paul Rudd, which you can deny it all you want. It's there. In the eyes, I think. I'm young looking like him. If you enjoyed the podcast, which you obviously did or you wouldn't be listening still, sign up on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you want to listen to. Comment here on YouTube. Subscribe. Hit that like button. We want to hear from you. Comments, questions, dirty jokes, money. All the money you can give us. We'd love it all. Catch you next time.